Hi, and welcome to AI for UX. This is a space where UX researchers and product leaders stay current with the latest AI innovations. I'm John Whalen. I'm the founder of Brilliant Experience, and we're a psychology driven product and innovation firm. And in each installment here, we speak to a founder of one of the latest AI enhanced tools, sort of dive deep into the inspiration for it and how it might benefit you, and think about ultimately where this whole field is headed. So today, I'm very happy to be joined by um, Perdices, and he's the co-founder and CEO of Whyser, a tool that recruits participants, conducts voice interviews, and analyzes results to uncover actionable insights. And just a brief programming note, these videos are not product endorsements. Brilliant always pays full price for any technology we use. Nobody's getting paid. We're just here to learn more about technologies together. So with that, let me get us started. Sergi, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview and talk to us. I'm delighted to have you here and learn about Whyser.
It's great to be here, John, and thank you for doing this series. I think there's so much evolving right now in research and AI, and I think
Yeah,
these conversations help people not only to keep up, but also empower them to explore and try new approaches. So I'm excited to be here and share more about Wiser.
cool. And you're absolutely right. I really encourage people to keep learning and be curious and try these new possibilities, and make decisions for themselves of what's appropriate. So, well, here, let's talk about Whyser. So maybe you can just tell me a little bit about the target audience for Whyser and the sort of points it addresses.
Absolutely. Like you mentioned, Wiser is a platform for gathering and analyzing qualitative insights, and it's built for researchers, product managers, UX designers, really anyone who needs deep qualitative insights to make informed decisions, whether it's for user research, customer research, market research, or just discovery work. Wiser helps them to get the why behind user motivations and behaviors.
Cool. It's so important to now when we can build things so fast in other tools, knowing really understanding the why is critical. So perfect. Well, what's a typical scenario when a UX researcher or a product team might use Wiser?
Sure. Wiser is used across full product and research cycle from early discovery to idea validation. We've seen it also in branding, marketing, and also post-launch feedback. For example, like a product team might be exploring new collaboration features that might use Wiser to interview, let's say, remote workers who manage tasks and communication. And in a few hours, they can uncover like real frustrations, understand opportunities that generally would not show up in surveys or analytic dashboards. And also, it can be like a researcher investigating attitude changes, like these days, very common towards data privacy. So it could use Wiser to interview participants across multiple age ranges in different languages or time zones to uncover those motivations that shape behavior, which is very critical to influence like strategy and positioning as a researcher. So at the end, it's a primary research tool. The possibilities are very broad, and the big power is that it can be fully tailored to you and to your company, to your products and needs. Like you define what is that study, what you want to learn, and from who, and we help you gather those insights so that you can analyze and make informed decisions.
Excellent. And I really appreciate, and I didn't understand at first, but now that I've used some of the AI moderated tools, being able to do research around the clock and do scaled things and multilingual really makes us more inclusive than we've ever been in some of our research, so especially for global groups that we work with. Well, it's true that there are some things now that do this in addition to Wiser. So maybe you can help me with what makes sort of Wiser unique and maybe better than some other options.
Yeah, so our core focus is on high quality voice interviews and conversations. Our platform, we design it end to end to deliver natural conversational voice interviews that feels like a real one-on-one conversation. And the reason for this is that this experience, especially for the participant experience, it means that if it's a natural and engaging conversation, it leads to the participant opening up, sharing richer stories, and at the end, you're getting the deeper and richer insights that you need to make those decisions. And And I can share like how also how we got here. We tried first before like different approaches, different formats early on. In the beginning, we started with chat, and then we moved to record your answer, kind of like click start voice recording. But we constantly saw that those formats limited the quality of the responses that we were getting. For instance, when we started with text, we saw a pattern that the first responses were about like a sentence long, but after that,
Yeah.
they would start to get half sentence and like a couple of words. So it was hard to get to those qualitative insights. And it's not. I'm not saying it was not a bad solution. Like I think it was even better than existing surveys because you were not biasing the participants with a few options to choose from. And then
Cool. Oh, please go ahead.
yeah, and then we moved to the click to record, and we did like a long A/B test where we were also interviewing ourselves, and AI was interviewing participants, and we saw different participant behavior where they were providing longer answers, but they would prep before starting the recording. So it felt more like a speaking survey. We're losing that natural thought process that makes the live interviews so valuable. So that's what we end up doing with Whyser, build it from the ground up to be a live voice conversation that makes it a natural experience. AI adapts to the conversation and be able to achieve a frictionless participant experience to improve that engagement and quality of those insights.
Very cool. And no, I have experienced all these formats you're talking about. And yeah, we know firsthand that when you're doing sort of just typing in the answers, that it can be very terse and very short. And also, I hadn't thought about sort of preparing before I hit record in the cases where you sort of say record, stop, record, stop. But yeah, that's absolutely a possibility. And I wrote a book called Design for How People Think, so it makes sense that you're doing the most natural for us humans, and in sort of voice to voice. Well, I did want to ask you a question just about sort of the approach to research and how it might be a little different because of tools like Whyser. So, how should I think about how should I how should people think about working with a tool like yours? So, how might they be approaching research differently or even approaching questions differently because they have your tool?
Uh, I think the best way to look at it is it's a new research superpower. So it doesn't replace any of your thinking or like your strategy, the storytelling that is very crucial in product and research, but it helps you execute faster. It gives you more time to communicate, create company impact from those findings. And instead of having to do like a long planning and prepare studies weeks in advance and like they always trade-off between depth and breadth. I think Wiser lets you be able to do that research and do it more continuously and validate and learn. So when we are seeing is that people and teams, when they use Wiser, and they become more proactive in their research. They start to have that time to anticipate and reactively, instead of reactively doing research when a request arrives or a need comes up. And I think that's a game changer because it positions the team stronger in the organization because now they're going ahead and anticipating those changes and at the end driving more impact. And you mentioned also for people who might not be that familiar with AI in research, I think I would like to add that an important point of using AI is not because you don't want to talk to participants, but the magic that participants can be interviewed asynchronous has huge implications. Like
Yeah.
you mentioned speed, you mentioned inclusion, like now interview across time zones, language, and even scale. And for scale, I don't think it's about doing like 1,000 interviews, but it allows you to broaden the range of user segments that you can actually get feedback from without sacrificing that depth or quality. As, and also we found that it's very impactful with hard to reach audiences like professionals who are like doctors or lawyers are usually fairly
Yeah.
reluctant
Yeah.
to schedule like a live call at 1 p.m., but they will find that time during the day to find and to do the interview, but they need to do it at their convenience. So at the end, I think tools like Whyser is when you need to use them when you need like the depth of a real conversation, together with either speed or inclusion.
Yeah, very fair. And actually, we've been experiencing exactly what you said, that folks, particularly who are hard to reach or very senior, sometimes are, and actually like emergency room doctors are a great example, or nurses, where they can do it at their convenience, is amazing. And we didn't realize how much folks would appreciate that who have very limited time or flexibility. So good, and I think that's a very thoughtful way to think about it, and really all those things have come true for us at Brilliant, with in similar ways. Well, since we're using AI in this for doing the interviews, lots of folks worry a little bit about things like hallucinations or bias, or even that, will these things say the wrong thing to my participant? And so maybe you can just tell me a little bit about how you're, trying to address these sorts of issues without trade secrets, just generally, how are you approaching these kind of problems?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a very valid concern. And that's the reason why we designed Wiser very intentionally to address it. I think many people today have experienced dropping a large transcript into ChatGPT and asking questions about it. And the reality is that LLMs can hallucinate. And this is what it makes a very big difference between using general purpose tools like ChatGPT versus purpose-built tools for this case. Like in our case, we use AI in three different stages of our product. And the first one is helping you set up the study. The second one is that you mentioned we interview participants with AI. And this is where it comes in, how you did the setup of the study and all the guardrails that we created in order to have like a natural probing conversation, but still constrained within the boundaries of your topics and the probing directions that you want to follow. And the last one is on the analysis side. And I think this is where we build tools that help you surface those insights that you are looking for. So the reason we had to build like custom solution for that is to actually what you mentioned, handle those hallucinations. And AI is very good at surfacing them. And in our process, before delivering insights to you, and we can show it more later, we validate, like the AI goes back, validates if what it's answering is actually supported by the participant conversations. And it brings you all that supporting material for you to be able to verify and trust all those results. And it does that in a loop.
That's really that's really interesting. I think it's the first time I've sort of heard that sort of approach. So very cool. Um, well, I think we've talked a lot about Wiser. Maybe it makes sense to actually show folks some of it. So let me work on sharing your screen, and maybe you can just set the stage for what people are going to see and the sort of flow that you want to give them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, there we
So
go.
So we designed Wiser to be able to work with either from fresh new product managers who might not be that familiar with the research process to seasoned researchers who they are very familiar with how they are doing interviews today, and we want to help them to get everything as customized as they need. So when you start, like you can either like if you know what the specifics of your study, you can start providing it, or we help you get with different starters, and the AI will actually first interview you and to get into understanding what your study is about. So for instance, if one of the very common scenarios that we get is in exploratory research. So I can set up a study that can be relevant for our audience. And this is a study we run fairly often. Let's say we want to understand how product teams gather insights and validate product ideas. And what we are doing here is we're explaining the AI what we are looking for in our study, very similar to what you would do in a research teams when you are getting a research request inbound. So it asking me right now about like who do I want to talk to, wants to understand what's the context and the audience. So let's say for this study we're targeting like product managers, designers, and researchers. And depending on what your study is and what your goals are, this will adapt to help you with that information. And this is very common situation where it's trying to understand not only what the study is about, but what you would like to do with those results. So it can anticipate and better cover your needs. So in this case, I can say that we want to understand the challenges that the team faces and how they're currently navigating so that we can build better tools to support them. And you can either provide all these answers in one go, or the AI will ask you, but at the end is collecting all that research inbound information that it needs in order to provide like a study brief. And this is what it does. Like it creates a study brief fairly similar to what we're used to, like background about yourself, the study, and why you're conducting this, what are your high level goals that you want to learn, and this is the part that structures the conversations. And I have to say that this is a little bit different than the traditional tools that use more of a like a question structure based. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But at this point, we can review, make any changes, or just say that we're good with the draft, and we can later edit and you covered this very well in your courses. But one of the things that changes in the process when you're using AI to interview on your behalf is that you wanna before releasing or launching any study, you wanna test it as a participant. You wanna make sure you
Mm-hmm.
understand the experience the participant has, and sometimes that gives you different thoughts on how you want to structure that interview. And also this beginning conversation you're having with the AI, the best way to see it is as a research companion. In this case, I went straight to provide answers, but you could also have like a conversation and debate different approaches, and the AI will leverage all the best practices to help you debate and set up your study.
Very
And
cool. Sergey, so if I'm right, this is sort of ideal for both either just expediting what you're doing if you kind of know, like, so me, a seasoned researcher, or for someone who's more junior at research or a designer or a product owner, it might help them to just design something that's appropriate and gets them the data they need.
yeah, absolutely. And what we're seeing is that like this helps you with the cold start problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you might not know what is needed in order to launch a research. What are the things that are important before you set up a research study? And this helps you run through those thoughts. What we're seeing, like in seasoned researchers like yourself, is that when you come to the tool, you already have mostly structured those
Mm-hmm.
thoughts. So, or you might have different research briefs that you did in the past that you are doing like a derivative study of them. So you can copy paste your answer there. It will
Mm-hmm.
go through it. If it has any questions, it will ask. But if you provide all the information that is needed, it will go directly and set it up for you to review the study.
I actually appreciate practically we could sort of hand program it directly, but I always appreciate doing exactly the process you're doing just to see what comes up and see, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of this particular question. And so I think very seasoned people can find value in these kind of things too. But good. Well, here, let me let you continue. This is great. Thank you.
Yeah, and at this point, yeah, it's what I was mentioning. You can test the interview, or you can review the study, or you can test the interview anytime. Figure out the flow. You have different ideas. You can iterate. So in this case, I'm gonna show like a sneak preview. I'm not gonna go through the whole interview, but I think if you're good with it, we could, since this is a study that can be relevant to our audience today, we could share the link so people
Sure.
can try it on their own time and experience an interview through. And we do this research fairly often. We launch continuously interviews, and then we share the results with the community. So I think it could be a great opportunity.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And I really encourage everyone who's listening to these videos as well to just try this, understand what it's like to be a participant. And it helps you to craft better studies and understand what's possible with these. So here, I'll let you do your demo here. But yes, let's do it.
Absolutely. And this is the interface that participants get when they invited to the interview. And we simplified and streamlined all this process to make it very simple. And you can also customize the messages if you need. But what it's going to do is going to
Here, this is Pia. We're excited to learn more about how you and your team approach product development and user research. This should only take about 10 minutes. Is now a good time to chat?
yes, let's do it.
Great. Let's start with your current role. Can you share a bit about what you do and the team you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a product manager at a fintech company, and we work with B2B clients on providing solutions tailored to their needs.
It sounds interesting. Can you tell me more about your day-to-day activities and how your team is structured?
So I'll leave it here for now, but I encourage the audience to go through the conversation and experience it by themselves firsthand. And in terms of the setup, what we do is we structure the first message that introduces the study. And the reason we do it this way is because you want to be very consistent in how you present your company and the study. And here is where companies can choose to, sometimes they want to identify themselves as the ones being behind the study. Sometimes you don't want to bias the participant to know who's the company behind. So you have that flexibility to customize that aspect and be very consistent across them. And then it comes from the different sections of the interview guide, where instead of like creating like a question and number of follow-ups, we take a different approach that we find is better in terms of flow and conversational, and we do it in different topics. So instead of defining a question and a follow-up, you define what is the key question that you want to get answered and probing directions that are interesting for you. And based on this, the interviewer will adapt within these boundaries and ask follow-up questions to obtain your overall research goals, as well as if you're in a field or there's something that you think that you want the interviewer to handle very specifically, you can provide that guidance, and you structure the different topics throughout the conversation. And the way we do it is very similar to us. If I were to do this interview myself for you, John, how would you share what you want me to ask, right? You might not share directly like questions, but you're going to share with me what are your goals, what's the background of the study, and those blocks that you expect the participant to go through sequentially. And within those topics, have the flexibility to adapt to those conversations.
You know, it makes a lot of sense. And I think this is something that sort of people are new to when they first try these, is that you can have a question and you know, sort of probing or follow up things. And I actually find it interesting. Often these tools have, here's the key question, and often the tool sort of says it verbatim. And then with probes, I've seen a lot of variations. So you've got sort of questions that they might go after. So these are actually, I guess, the tool forms of as questions. But with the having additionally instructions for that block is kind of interesting. So we've had, for example, scientists, and they were doing very specialized terms like single-seq RNA analysis or multi-seq and so on. And it's all about sequencing RNA. But in that case, I could say, hey, if they mention single-seq, ask them this. Is that the kind of thing that would be appropriate for that, the sort of extra bit for interviewers?
Yes, exactly. And also how to handle certain situations as well. Like you might be doing like research in healthcare, and you may or may not want to dive into specific things on the participant health, or like you might be doing research on fintech side, and you might want to dive, or you may not want to dive into certain economical constraints or situations of the participants. So I would say it's very similar to if I were to do that interview for you. What are those things that you would tell me to take into account? Because that depends on your intent, right? Of your research, what you want to achieve, and how do you want me to handle those situations. That can be different in different studies, or it can be different ways that you handle. Different companies might have different ways that you want to handle. At the end is that space where you communicate how you want the interviewer to behave and know.
Got it. And actually, just for people listening, we found this very helpful for, like you said, with healthcare is a good example. That if we say something in the message here, like, hey, if they're starting to get uncomfortable with this question, just move on to the next one, and that kind of thing. So it can be much more natural than if it just kept asking follow-up questions, irrespective of how they were feeling. So cool. Well, let me let you keep going. This is really interesting. Thank you.
Yes, and this is the block that defines the interview. You can make changes yourself. You can fine tune it as much as you want. You can go back, test the interview. Additionally, this is where you provide like background goals of the study. If there's anything specific to know about your company or the product or the idea that you're validating, that's the great, and this is a space where you can provide this. And the reason why we do it is also because this is a natural conversation where the participant can also ask clarification questions or and so on. And here is where you can provide that information. So information that is not within this space, this is where we guarantee the AI will not come up with things that you were not expecting. So related to that, you can augment that information here. We will use it to answer, clarify anything that the participant asks during the conversation.
Sergio,
and after that,
just a real quick question about that too. So sometimes there are groups that are doing a new discovery set, and they've already tried one product and it didn't work, or they know there's a lot of competition in one space, but always people will ask for that tool. Is that a place also where I can say, hey, when you're doing the analysis, I want you to focus more on maybe these topics, or don't focus on this one option, focus on these other things? I guess I was just trying to understand. Often these things aren't tuned for strategy, and I wondered if that was a possibility there.
Yes, depends on what the strategy is. So the strategy for analysis, we'll get to that later. And here in this part of the setup is the strategy related to the conversation and the interview aspect. So you can add things that are relevant to you to understand, and in the, let's say, in the goals section, or provide more information about what you want to do with that study in the background, and then I'll show you in the analysis side how you can augment that information. Because part of our the way we design the analysis is not to give you the answer, because we have seen that it depends a lot on what you're looking for and in that section, but we provide you the tools and infrastructure to help you find those answers and be able to verify and basically reduce that huge burden of have to deal with a lot of qualitative insights. We help you imagine that you have next to you the person who conducted all these interviews. We let you ask questions and aggregate all those insights across them, but you are the one in control on what you want to see in your analysis and how you want to aggregate it, and give you the tools to verify those sources. And once we have the setup, I think this is fairly standard, but something interesting that we do is that you can create different recruitments, whether this is a link that you can distribute and say, I want this link to be for product managers, and that's how I'm gonna distribute it. It generates a link that you can distribute your own. But also we work with great partners to help you and streamline all this process. And many people are already very familiar on using user interviews, for instance, and we help you bring all that experience here very streamlined. And you can still have all the filters and define that persona that you are looking for. And we can source, we can screen filter the participants. And the exciting part we're seeing is that this is what it makes you be able to get those insights within hours instead of having weeks, having to coordinate different schedules, being able to have like participants that can create a no-show and so on. So
Yeah.
this is on the setup and launching the study. And I can open up like a study that very similar to this one that we ran before. So as interviews complete, you get all the interviews here, and for each of the interviews, we provide you with like the actual recordings of the conversation with like voice, or also like there's some video recording to it, and it gives you a high level summary of that interview, as well as like dive deep into the transcript. And we were seeing that especially in the first interviews, people are very active, listening to the recording. That's what it gives you the best feeling and helps you understand better the participants. And then participants dive to be able to start chatting with that data, finding and quantifying those insights across different interviews. And this is the part that I was mentioning before in terms of the analysis, that this allows you to ask the questions that you're looking for, and we help you extract those insights from the interviews. And we aggregate, and we also help you quantify. Instead of just finding the closest answer to the question, we review very thoroughly all the interviews. We extract those insights, we analyze them, and then before providing you a response, and I think that's what is very key, it goes back to the interviews and self-supervises that the themes and the answers that it's providing, it can actually be supported by participant votes again. And then it will summarize all those insights for you so that you can trace them back to those conversations and listen to the recordings and so on.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes this takes a minute, but actually it's worth it because it's doing the sort of check of what it's finding as opposed to just blurting out something quickly. So I appreciate that sort of level of sophistication. If I had a multilingual study, will these come out in the language, the source language, or are they translated into English, in this case for me?
Yes, so the aggregation will be in the language that you asked the question, but the quotes are verbatim. So this way you can still trace them back to the original transcript and see who was that participant, what they said, and get the full context of that interview. And sometimes you want to listen and how they express themselves around that idea or concept, and we make you that process streamline very quickly.
If there are often, say 3 to 5 really big questions that our stakeholders ask us, would I kind of just ask 5 questions if there were 5 major things to get the sort of summary answers from this, or is there another way that I would approach that?
Yes, so you can structure the questions, and if you're looking for a specific format or report into that, you can also specify it. But we're still going to give you however you want. You ask the structure to be format. We will always append those quotes that support any of the results, because we actually, before giving you that result, we went back and validated. So we keep track of those and provide it to you as a reference so that you can always validate and trust the results.
I gotta say, it saves so much time. Like when we've done, 90 interviews around the world, and someone says, "Did anyone ever mention X?" And we can search for it in a chat like this, and then go straight to the quote to make sure it really is appropriate. It's just a huge. I wouldn't be able to do it as a human on my own without a tool like this. So very cool. Okay,
and
cool.
You can also dive deeper. Here we're still working on the experience, but you can mention a participant ID. We try to anonymize the results as well, and you can ask questions about like why this participant mentioned this, or what was the full context, or like what was the context of the response, or like if you want to know other things that they answered about different questions, you can reference that participant and ask questions about that specific interview, as well as when I mentioned the recruitment. You can also create different segments. Like here, you could have create a segment to source participants who are product managers, or participants who are researchers, or participants who are research managers within the same study. And then that would also come up here, and you can choose what results do you want to include in the responses. And you can also, that also helps you compare across different segments, because we're tracking those different recruitments that have different participant personas in your study.
Got it. No, that's a lot. So, well, have we covered the majority of what you wanted to show us? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think this is the high level overview.
Plenty.
From this point, there's a lot of things that you can do with the platform, but I think it's better than people explore it themselves and get their heads dirty at this point. I think now they know how to set up a study, how to recruit participants, and how to analyze the insights. And we're also seeing that there's some companies that are very comfortable using, like whether it's like Dovetail or Marvin, and in the interview process. So we also allow you to come here and explore those transcripts and recordings. If you already have a tool that is working with you, you can come here, compare. Our tool is very specifically built, as you have seen, for analyzing those qualitative interviews. And that's what we are very good at. But if you're keeping your repository elsewhere, we're very flexible to not disrupt your existing process.
Got it. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I did want to ask, logically, we could, you've got voice to voice, and you use sort of a waveform to represent the moderator. Logically, it could be some sort of picture of a person, or it could be almost anything. What's your thinking around whether it would just be too uncanny valley or creepy to have an image of a person talking, or kind of where you land on the possibilities there? So voice to voice does seem very natural, but what are you thinking about the visuals there?
Absolutely, and this is a great question. We actually did research on it. We did experiments where we used avatars in the interview, especially for those interviews that participant is showing camera. We wanted to also show a representation on the interviewer. But what we found is that it's what you mentioned. There's that uncanny valley that we're seeing people, and then we interview them about their experience, and we could see them paying a lot of attention at the lip syncing and so on. And they were feeling a little bit more distracted than when it's just a voice conversation where your focus is on your ears and speaking. So that's why we didn't continue pursuing that implementation, is because of that. Like at the end, what we are looking here is the best experience for the participant, which is what it's going to lead to the best results and insights. Having the participant comfortable, focused, and engaged is what is going to provide you with the best insights. Because anything that you also want to do in the analysis, it's all about the data that you capture, and capturing that data and experience is one of our core focus.
Interesting. No, it's a very thoughtful approach and makes sense. Well, cool. I wanted to try. So first of all, thank you very much for really showing us how Whyser works. And I hope people start to understand that these things literally, like, we've took maybe 20 minutes tops, and you were able to essentially create a study, practice it, see some of the analysis. So it can go very quickly relative to what we would do, just as humans back in 2022 without a tool like this. So it's really remarkable.
And I think that's part of the reason I think it's so important to get your hands and start experimenting as soon as possible, is because it's so quickly the time that it takes you to actually be able to get those insights, that when you need them, you don't have the time to explore and understand new tools like this. This should be something that's already on your tool set, and to be able to use it very quickly. And it changes a lot, and you have to be very hands-on in these approaches. It's not like, oh, we're going to do a research study in 1 month, so I have 3 weeks to start preparing for it.
Yeah, it's true. Yep, I just agree. It's that simple. Well, I wanted to take a step back. We've talked all about Whyser, and we haven't talked about you and your team. So I guess I wondered what, I haven't been brave enough to be like you and launch my own product and go from 0 to 1 and offer it to people and get reactions and so on. So what inspired you to create this product for this field?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit on our story. So I've been in the research field for over a decade. I was a senior director of research at Samsung. I was leading a large team of researchers, engineers, designers, basically in charge of creating new products and services. Everything from the first smartwatch back in 2013, AR, VR devices, robotics, AR, AI services, and so on. And one thing that frustrated me a lot is that it's actually what you mentioned in the beginning. Building products have become easier and faster every time, but understanding users didn't. And this means that these days there are like libraries, APIs for everything. And with cloud providers, you can ship at scale products very quickly. But research has always remained basically the same since we moved from the in-lab studies with half mirrors to the cloud, and it has been a while. And the reality of that in companies, even in our case, that is that even if we invested heavily on the research side, every time that the product cycle gets faster, and if research takes longer, it ends up being skipped or reduced. And that's something that you end up building a lot of more products and features, but you end up failing faster. So you're not actually getting that advantage on the speed. And with this new wave of AI and LLMs, we thought that this is a very good opportunity to redefine how this research is done in companies without having to compromise for the depth and quality, and be able to do it at a scalable and affordable, instead of having to many times have to rely that you need these qualitative insights, but you end up doing like a mixed survey with text boxes, or like you're running like an unmoderated study where what you actually want is have a conversation, but you don't have the time to afford those.
Yeah, very true. In the folks in my course who are experiencing these things sometimes for the first time, start to realize that, oh, this is, maybe a human could do an interview that much better, maybe. But if I can turn this around in like 24 hours and I can do things globally with many languages, then my results are so much more impactful to stakeholders than if I said, yes, I tested 4 people locally. And instead I can say, here's interviews from 20 folks around the world. So it does feel like there are so many questions that were just left to the product manager's gut feeling and never got to research. And so potentially we're going to be doing lots more research than before and have better answers to so many different things. So very fair.
Absolutely. And I think it's part of that answer. It's not about like, it's the new possibilities that you can do with it. It's not that I expect that you will replace all the interviews that you're doing, but you can also be more selective and already have screened like 10, 20 participants in things that it matters to you. And now if you want to invest like an hour of your time interviewing them, like you can be more selective in who do you want to interview, that usually like a screener question will not get you there.
Yeah, we found an interesting new sort of approach to mixed methods where sometimes we're interviewing a handful of folks, scaling that up from what we've learned using AI moderation. And then there's interesting questions that come out of the AI moderated tests and sort of following up on those with human to human interviews. So it's an interesting new world. Well, with Whyser, I wanted to make sure I asked, is there anything that you've been able to achieve or milestones that you're particularly proud of with Whyser?
I would say what we're the most proud of is what clients are capable of doing now with Whyser. I think we're very honored to be able to be working with great companies and corporations like LG, who are also very active using the platform. And I think we're doing a great job in that because and I think I can share like some of the recent examples that I think it makes us very proud. And on the client side, we've seen for instance, in the last week, like a client used Whyser to validate like new product direction, and in less than 24 hours, and by themselves. Our team didn't have to interact. They set up the study and they recruit participants. They launch it and they go to analyze those results the next day. And even a few weeks ago, I also got like another client who dropped me a line because I'm still personally checking in with them, and I'm very interested in how they're using our platform and the experiences that they have. And like that client mentioned that they found like a major false assumption before they built a new feature that had like a critical component. And they got to rethink those aspects before doing through the whole implementation, integration, and so on. And that's mostly on the client side. But I think one of the things that we found very very important is, and I mentioned it a couple of times, is the participant side and the experience. And what we have seen is that in our interviews, it often happens that towards the end of the conversation, when the interviewer thanks for the time, the participants thank the interviewer back. And that might seem small, but it means that they felt heard, they were comfortable during the interview, they were willing to open up, and they were not like in a rush to finish, like, and they're not rushing through like what it could be like a survey. And I think that that's very important because that's where it comes the deep insights, and that's where we take a lot of care on the participant side, because it's what is providing us the best insights.
And it makes so much sense to focus on the sort of naturalness of it. And I've had folks in my class or in talks and workshops and stuff ask, well, just how human is it? And so then I have to say, well, there's so many dimensions. So is it appropriate words or typical syntax of a conversation, or the speed and cadence, or how long they pause before they respond, or when there's white space in the interview. And I think that's actually really hard. So it's not easy to measure the sort of naturalness. I'm sure you know better than me. And so no, it takes a lot of work. So that should be something that you're rightfully, happy that you've produced. Well, let me actually ask, think a little bit to the future. And so I had a question here that when I first wrote my interview guide, said, in the next few years, and things are moving so fast, it makes me laugh every time I see it. But where do you see both, Whyser evolving, and how do you see this whole process of doing user or, human research for products changing over the next while?
I'll try to tackle both. I think on the Whyser side, our goal is becoming like a default platform for teams to be able to come here and listen, understand their users, customer, market, and be able to do it continuously instead of just at a specific milestone or part on the product cycle. And we're also in that regard working on different integrations and also adding longitudinal features to track change, be able to be more proactive on using research over time and so on. And things that we're seeing as well, and how this is changing, is that we're also starting to see executives coming to Whyser to chime in, listen to some of these voice of the customer directly. And I think that's huge, especially for alignment. It means it's bringing research more top of mind in the organizations. And there's this cycle that in organizations, that the more attention you drive from executive, the more impact you can create, and it will bring you a better budget and support from the organization to be able to create more research that drive more impact and drive more attention. And that's part of what I was mentioning before about like the difference between being proactive and reactive. And I think a lot of teams have been very busy being able to do and execute research, that the situation has gone to be more reactive in that sense. And towards the future and the industry, I personally think that AI will not be optional. It's a new superpower, and it's the stakes are on the table, like, and researchers and product teams who know how to use it well, it will lead this new generation of research and overall work in companies and enterprises. And in one thing that when I talk a lot, because I talk a lot with people on this field, I think there's some of them that are afraid of AI in this space, and I have a totally different outlook into this. Like, and I think we have seen it display before. Like when we move research from the lab to the cloud, I remember like similar concerns. Like people were worried about like devaluating the field, and we were going to lose some jobs because we don't need to maintain a lab anymore, and so on. But what actually happened is that it expanded access and demand went like more than 100x to it. And I think that we are at that next inflection point for research where it can be expanded, democratized, and create so many opportunities and impact within the companies. And at the end, is research needs to, what you mentioned, needs to match the speed of product. Because if insights arrive after decisions are made, what could have been an impactful research report actually becomes a well-written list of regrets. And you're already committed to do certain things, the organization is moving in that direction, and now you're fighting against the organization because you discover new findings. And I think that's a very, very different and important transition. And
Yeah.
that's great. I think I mentioned it to you before in the past, and I think you're doing, because I think you're doing a very excellent job in your courses, educating and disseminating this knowledge, which is very important for this transition. And this is what is gonna empower like research and product teams to become like a more essential and integrated part of the organizations that have a lot of high-level executive attention to it.
Fair. And, we really do try, and there are other great courses too, but I think all of us are just making sure people get exposed to what's possible, understand where it could fit in their organization, and make the right choices for them. So we don't have to be like fans or not. We simply have to see what's possible and when it's best used. And so very cool. Well, thank you so much for doing this with me. If people have seen Whyser, they got interested, we'll certainly share a link to the actual study so they can be a participant. But if they want to try it as a researcher or a product person or others, how could they give it a try or connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And we make that very, very easy. So if you're a self-starter, and just head to Whyser.ai and you can start today. We try to make it very low friction to get started and use the platform. And if you want to talk or you want to see and discuss more how this fits in your workflow or in specific on your organization, feel free to contact me. I'm very approachable on LinkedIn, or you can also contact us through our website, and we'd love to show you more and how we can help you in navigating these new stages and transitions. At the end, research is a mixed method approach, and AI is your new superpower. So the sooner we can get people to be able to understand and be able to use it, the better and faster we're going to transition.
Yeah. With our clients at Brilliant Experience, we offer we can do things the 2022 way, or I can do things with these tools. And, we have 95% of folks are saying we want the faster scaled, more inclusive things. And so I do think that people have to take advantage of these things and understand how appropriately to get their superpowers. So very cool. Well, thank you, Sergi, so much for sharing Whyser with us and just your thoughts here as well. So I'll sign us out briefly, but I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Cool. Yes, likewise. Well, cool. Thank you, everyone. That's all for today. I appreciate you keeping up on the latest AI for UX research and product research. So, of course, subscribe and let us know in the comments what else you'd like to learn about next. And we're wishing you brilliant insights with AI.